folks, good evening. We are going to wait just a minute or two because I believe we are waiting on one more person to have a quorum. So we do not want to have a quorumless meeting here. So please bear with us for just a minute. Do we have any member of the commission online? I see we have 5 participants. All right. Well, we definitely had RSVP, so we'll just give it a minute or two and then we'll start. No worries. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 12th, 2023 meeting of the Brentwood Planning and Zoning Commission. I'll call the meeting to order, and if we could please start with the roll. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind.
Jeff Hunt.
Here.
Mark Favazza.
Here.
John Ritter.
Here.
Matt Foreman.
Here.
Carl Carlin.
Here.
John Nurnberg. And Chair Nelson.
Here. Thank you very much. If you could, I probably went past, I always get it backwards. If you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance now. I wasn't. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Now we know who's here. Just say the pledge. Next item of business is approval of the agenda. Is there any objection to approving the agenda by acclamation? Any changes or alterations needed? The agenda then stands approved. The meeting minutes for our March 8th, 2023 meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or changes that need to be made to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, any objections to approval of the minutes by acclamation? The minutes will be approved. Next item of business is citizen comments. These are for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda this evening. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the commission? Not on the agenda. We will give opportunity when we go through business for that. All right, and moving on to old business. Our first item is P&Z 23003. This is for a conditional use permit for Alloy Personal Training at 2533 South Brentwood Boulevard within the tenant space addressed as 2537 South Brentwood Boulevard. I believe it was some discussion about a potential motion to table, but I'll go to staff report for an update on this, Ms. Kelly, if you could, just on kind of what our communication has been with the applicant and the property owner.
They had submitted for a conditional use permit as a physical fitness facility at 2533 South Brentwood Boulevard is the property address. Their tenant space would be 2537 South Brentwood Boulevard. We've had numerous discussions with them and the property owner regarding the available parking on site. They are showing a current parking deficit, and normally we would have them enter into a memorandum of understanding for our traffic engineer to provide a parking study to see if all the uses would still comply. However, they have not signed that agreement, and we've tried to come up with some other options, and I've asked for any additional information, and they've been non-responsive. So at this point, the recommendation was to table, but our attorney has suggested that since section 400.660B has that if after 70 days the Planning and Zoning Commission has not made a recommendation, that it is determined to be an approval. So his recommendation is we just discuss it as it's stands right now and either deny or not, versus tabling.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. So basically, the issue that we were dealing with, as explained, is that if we take no action and table it, or we don't have a recommendation to table from the applicant, so we don't want to take any action based on their recommendation since we haven't heard from them. If we take no action, by default, it goes to approval. And because it is, I believe at this point, they do not have the parking needed for the conditional use permit, that's probably not the most appropriate action to take, unless the commission believes otherwise. But that's what we wanted to put forward. Mr. O'Keefe, did I get that properly?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Could we, for the record, ask whether there's a representative of the applicant present?
That's a very good point. Is there a representative, a representative of the applicant or the applicant here this evening? Or online?
I believe the record could note that there was no answer.
Thank you, Mr. O'Keefe. I
In that
appreciate
case, the commission may wish to take the matter on the basis of the application and the written materials that have been submitted, and staff will answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the commission at this point, or any other information that's needed? Do we have a motion to consider this? Now, again, we can have a motion to approve, and we can have also a motion to deny and to disapprove based on the information that we've been provided, which demonstrates that there isn't sufficient parking to meet our guidelines. Do I have a motion? Or is it a motion to approve, or is it a motion to deny? I believe we need a motion to take action on this.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct, Mr. O'Keefe? So,
Yes.
yeah, so we have to take action. We can take them, it's confusing.
If there's
Yeah.
any discussion on the application,
Then we take that after the motion is made. To approve or deny, Mr. Nuremberger? Okay, all right. It's going to get confusing. So there's a motion to approve. Do we have a second? And if the motion fails, let me make sure I remember my Robert's Rules of Order. If the motion fails without a second, what is the status of that? Or if the motion doesn't have a second?
or is open to another motion.
Just to be clear, usually a motion's always in the affirmative, and then you vote yes or no on that.
That has been the practice
Yeah.
here of the commission. So that would require a second, even if we plan on voting against this motion.
I'll second.
There we go. Thank you. It's not often that we get negative motions, so I appreciate that from both city's attorney and from the director. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All right, at that point then, we will go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Hunt?
And so this vote is, do we approve the petition or the application, or are we denying it?
No.
Mr. Favazza?
No?
Sharing?
No.
Mr. Ritter?
No.
Mr. Foreman?
No.
Mr. Carlin?
No.
Mr. Nurnberg? No. Okay, unanimous vote no.
Thank you very much. And obviously, the applicant would have the ability to refile a petition and their application if they choose to do so.
Still go through to the board.
Through the board, yes. Yep. All right, thank you. I guess that is a little unusual for us, so I appreciate everyone's patience and guidance here. We haven't done a negative in a while. All right, our next old business is B is Planning and Zoning 23005. This is a text amendment for revisions to section 400.1880. This is the Dark Sky Initiative. As the commission may recall, we did discuss this in our last meeting, and so we will then turn to any updates from staff. Ms. Kelly.
cost to the city if they were to have it, their policy in Washington is that it has to go through the state board that has to be elected by the state. If they agree to do that, then there would be an upcharge to the city of $1,000 per light, plus the time and manpower and any cable cost fees for powering the lights. So that is 512 lights that are 80% energy efficient. But that's the code as written. Would not require it to be all done at once, only when a new light system needs to be replaced. So it wouldn't occur, that cost would not occur all at once should the city proceed with this application. However, their recommendation is they're currently moving from 4,000 Kelvin to 3,000, which is in the range of the Dark Sky Initiative, so they would like to ask that it become, the ordinance be amended to be 3,000.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Samantha Williams is on the line. Bringing her forward so that she can.
Good evening. Can you hear us?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, unfortunately, Wade and I with Amron, we did not hear anything. We just kind of noticed the head nod, so we assumed someone was talking.
Sorry about that. I was just explaining that there is a cost, roughly what your memo kind of went over. So if you want to go over that there would be a cost to the city, as well as you had some other concerns, and that your recommendation is to move it to 3,000 Kelvin instead of 2,700 Kelvin.
Yes. So again, first of all, just want to say thank you so much for allowing us to attend tonight and weigh in on this. We appreciate the opportunity to work together and meet the city's needs. One thing we wanted to do is take a little half step back, if we may, and just educate everyone on the difference between light temperature and the amount of light that is emitted. So first we wanted to just, remind everyone that we are a regulated utility. So if
Samantha?
can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your sound went lower, so if you could speak louder, that we would appreciate that.
Okay, I apologize about that. So again, we just appreciate the opportunity to talk to the city tonight. We just wanted to make a couple clarifications before answering that question about associated cost. The first is that Ameren is a regulated utility governed by the Missouri Public Service Commission. And so we want to do the best that we can to meet the needs while working within the tariff and our regulatory framework. So the first thing we wanted to point out is that a condition of service, Ameren Missouri's Rate 5M, which is what the city falls under, company-owned lighting is that a customer must select from the company's standard fixtures. The second thing we wanted to point out was, and in that packet, I hope you all can see it. I can't see the screen. I'm just talking blind here. Hopefully you can see an image of different light bulbs. And we're on the left-hand side, you see 2000 K and it looks a little orange and yellow. And then on the right-hand side, you see 6000 K and it looks more like a bluish white. So the change from 4000 K to 3000 K to 2000 K denotes the light's color temperature. So how it's viewed to the human eye. That is not a measurement of how much light is emitted. So one thing that Ameren is already doing, what we're doing, since June 21st, 2021, we began purchasing and installing bracket mount lights that are rated at 3000 K. We believe that this 3000 K should be efficient and meet the city's needs. Again, if you look at that color chart that we provided and you see 2000 K and 3000 K, a 2700 K will fall closer to that 3000 K, and it will be kind of close to the human eye. The other thing we wanted to point out is that regarding efficiency, the lumen per watt for the LED is reduced by 8 to 10% if changing from 3000 K to 2700 K. The last thing we wanted to point out is, and you can see this in, well, you cannot see it in the document, but I'll try to describe it the best I can. So the difference between a bracket mounted light pole and a contemporary post top decorative light is, think about when you're driving down the street and you see the typical street light that you're used to with that arm kind of overhanging. That is a normal street light, which is a bracket mounted light. Then think about driving on a side street or a cul-de-sac, and you may see a smaller decorative light pole. So to meet the 2700K, we have different types of light pole offerings, right? And so the ones that take the 2700K is that contemporary post top decorative light. So again, in order to meet that 2700K ordinance, you would be asking us to replace bracket mount lights with contemporary post top lights, and those costs get astronomical. So we just wanted to educate the team and kind of open it up to questions. I didn't want to get too into the weeds without hearing further questions.
We appreciate that. Any questions from the commission on this? So I think I appreciate, first of all, the read ahead and being able to review that. I think we had some similar, but it wasn't as specific on what Ameren's offerings are and what your plans are. So that's very helpful. Any other questions? Please, Mr. Carl.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, so I understand there's existing lights in the city now, and the ordinance does not address those until they run out of their useful service life and they have to be replaced, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're not saying to change anything existing, whether we want to or not, which I will leave that out there. So anything purchased new would be possibly at the 3,000 Kelvin amount. And so any of the ones that exist now are retrofittable to 3,000 or none are?
So I'll answer that to the best I can. And again, forgive me, I'm not an engineer, so I'm going to oversimplify it. I'm just a communication manager doing the best I can. So so imagine we have 4 different types of light offerings. That's the best way I can oversimplify this. Type 1 would be that bracket mount, again, that standard light pole that you would see if you're driving down a main street. The second type is that decorative contemporary light that you would see on a cul-de-sac. So again, to oversimplify this, let's just imagine there's only 2 types of lights in the city of Brentwood. Of course, there's more, but again, for the case of tonight, let's assume there's just 2. What we're saying is, given our current standards and given that we're a regulated utility, we have certain standards and certain light offerings that we can offer any city, any municipality that chooses us as their electric provider. And so with that contemporary decorative light style that you would see on a cul-de-sac, it can take that 2700K light bulb. So you would pay the price of replacing that light bulb before the end of its useful life, or you just wait till that light bulb goes out and then tell us, hey, we want to get this replaced with 2700K. Now, what gets more complicated and why we were urging the city to adopt 3000K is when you start talking about that option 1, which is that bracket mount light that you see along main streets and boulevards, okay? So that does not take that 27K. So in order to meet the ordinance as it stands, we will have to remove that bracket mount light post, which is what you're used to, and try to replace it either with that decorative lighting that you see on a cul-de-sac or install a decorative light that you would see on a cul-de-sac next to that bigger light pole. And again, to oversimplify it, it's like asking someone to replace all the stadium lights at the Cardinals with a floodlight in the backyard to meet the type of light bulb that a floodlight in the backyard can take.
So those existing cannot take 2700, but can they take 3000 Kelvin?
They can. And so I think I'm pulling up the staff report to make sure it's in there. So I believe in the staff report, it shows that. And then also I'll open it up to Wade so he can jump into if that's okay.
Sure. And actually, just to finish my thought, I would suggest that changing the ordinance from 2700 to 3000, if that stays within the Dark Sky Initiative guidelines, and it's also a warmer color temperature, and I think it would be, for my purposes, it would be an improvement, and it would be fine with me. And if that, helps with cost, and it also, seems to help everybody to make that change. So I would suggest we could go with 3000 Kelvin without any trouble, personally. So,
Thanks, Mr. Carlin. Any other comments?
Do you know the expected useful life of one of the existing fixtures?
I'll hand that over to Wade if that's okay. He's our technical expert.
We're elevating him now.
All right, Mr. Miller, I think you can hear us, and hopefully you'll be able to, we can hear you. Perhaps not.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to see if he can hear you. He says, yes, he can hear you.
Okay.
I just don't think we can hear him.
We're just not able to hear him.
Okay, I'll ask him if he can text me the response.
Okay.
Or there is a chat function. I think that works as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll take Mr. Hunt, any other questions? We'll see if we can get that one kind of asynchronous here a little bit. Any other questions from members of the commission? I do think, just to kind of recap some of the discussion we had last time, is currently taking a look, and we will take, obviously, questions, and if there are members of the public wishing to address this as well, because I know we're getting a little bit of that from Ameren. There was some concerns about whether it was commercial lighting. There was concerns about the public lighting, street lighting from Ameren. But then also, I believe the draft ordinance as written does include residential as well. And I know that we had a lot of discussion about that, of requiring homeowners, basically, when a light burns out, that they would have to go in and replace that light with something that was now either 27 or 3,000, and some concerns that existing fixtures may not work, so that there'd be a significant expense. And I know that was a big topic of conversation, so I just wanted to remind folks of that as well.
Yeah. I will also clarify, I did speak with Eric Grunfelder, who's chair of the Sustainability Commission, and it was his understanding that he felt that this was mostly for commercial parking lot fixtures. It was not intended for people's homes, inside the homes, but included road sign lighted and things like that. But if someone were to have a floodlight, I think that's the open question, if we wanted to have that brought into compliance, and we can clarify that in the ordinance.
And I think that was the question that I had possibly for staff, but also just making sure I was summarizing correctly some of the conversation we had last time. It was the commission were there any changes made to the proposed draft ordinance that removed residential? I didn't think I saw it.
No, I spoke with Eric, or he made that clarification after the agenda went out, so we can certainly make that would be a recommendation that y'all would need to vote on tonight, and we would make that change for the Board of Aldermen.
Yeah, if that's the will of the commission. I just think I'm trying to summarize because I know that was a question. Please.
So the Ameren representative did make a comment, and we're specifically targeting this conversation about the color temperature, but there was a comment made about the 8 to 10% reduction from 3,000 K to 2,700 K. The 2,700 K would actually not be as efficient with the same lumen output. Did I understand that properly?
Yes.
Okay, so cost of operation would go up. Addressing the public safety issue, is there any challenge achieving current light levels, or would we be improving lumen output by staying at 3,000 in comparison to fixtures, the 500 and change that are already installed?
I think you may have lost me. Can you?
So there's 500 fixtures
Yes.
out there. Regardless of color, when those burn out,
Right.
we're getting a certain amount of lumen output currently at whatever, we'll say 6,000 because it's the top end of the scale, right?
Well,
When we go to the 3,000, are we still getting the same lumen output that we have in our current fixtures?
okay. So my understanding from Ameren and Samantha was that all of the light fixtures are currently at 4,000, and they're moving, as of June 21st, 2021, they were moving to 3,000 Kelvin. So it's not 6,000 Kelvin.
Okay, that's fine.
But I will let Samantha answer the lumen question.
Yes.
Or if
And I
Wade.
see your hand up, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Yes, I can answer. I want to go back and answer the initial question. So Wade is texting me because he said the chat is disabled and it's disabled on my end as well.
Technology is not our friend.
No, it's okay. We thought we had redundancies in place. So he texted me, he said, lights pretty much last about 15 to 20 years. And I wanted to give greater context about the 4,000K versus 3,000K, because one, I've been nerding out about this, doing research for this meeting, and I find it exciting. So pretty much the lumen output would be the same, but wanted to take a quick step back. So originally, when we chose that 4,000K, at that time, that was the industry standard, right? And so as technology has evolved and improved and become more efficient, we found that 3,000K was becoming more efficient with the improvement in technology. So as a company, our standards group, our regulatory team, we all worked together and came up with this plan to shift from a 4,000K to a 3,000K light bulb. And that's one of the things that we were talking about standards. So we have to go before the Missouri Public Service Commission and say, here's what we propose to do. Here are our standards of lighting. Here's what our tariffs are. So when we try to make that decision, we had to go before the PSC for approval before we did that. The other thing is, because we do serve in Missouri and in Illinois, we try to do the best we can to keep our standards very similar or the same across Ameren, Missouri, and Ameren, Illinois. So again, so when we talk about that reduction in efficiency, we're saying that if the lights are kept at 3,000K, it will run efficiently. The change from 3,000K to 2,700K is an 8 to 10% less efficient lighting, which means I can't see everyone's face. So to the gentleman who was explaining the 6,000K, he is correct in that by switching to 2,700K, you're pretty much going to have to use more power to kind of get back up to that 3,000K level, but only by 8 to 10%. So in short, the point that we were trying to make for everybody is it's such a small difference that for the astronomical cost it would take to shift to 2,700K, you're pretty much better off just sticking with the 3,000K and getting it for free as we go ahead and replace these lights. Or if you wanted to pay an expedited fee, so that way we replace lights in the city of Brentwood quicker than we had scheduled, that is still going to be much cheaper than if we tried to replace everything at a 2,700K offering.
Mr. Question, Mr. Foreman, thank you. Are there any members of the public, unless we have other members of the commission, that wish to address the commission or ask questions on this application? All right. I think that it will be entertain a motion. I will note, and just trying to review this, that the following standards currently as written, as we've been discussing, do apply to all exterior light fixtures within the city. Based on the discussion last time, if there is an interest in having this apply, would non-residential be something that would suffice to that intent? And is that, Mr. Akiva, is that too broad, or is okay? If that is the will of the commission, but I'm sorry.
So just one more comment, maybe just in favor of the idea. I'm okay. I think probably wise to remove residential from the list, but I do think encouraging, since it's going to be the Ameren standard anyway, that encouraging other property owners who are building new to match that standard, I think helps with the effect and beauty of our town. So I think it's a good idea. And since it's not affecting existing fixtures, it's not an undue burden on anybody to do that. So I'm sort of in favor of it for that reason.
I think we have an RFP coming up a little later that might, in fact, address that very issue. So we can have that conversation. Sorry, Mr. Hunt.
I'm still a little confused by the language of the ordinance as far as when you would be obligated to replace a fixture versus a bulb. I don't think, especially in the third and fourth sentences of A, where it says the retrofits to existing outdoor fixtures are not required. However, light bulbs in existing outdoor fixtures lighting must be 2,700 degrees. So are they saying that they don't have to change the fixture, but you might have to put in a bulb that's not actually compatible? I don't understand. And maybe I'm just misreading it.
So if you look at section C, it is all light fixtures, lamps, bulbs lawfully installed prior to and operable on the effective date of this section are exempt from all requirements of this section unless existing fixtures are replaced, removed, or reinstalled in connection with a new use or structure in which this section is applicable. So therefore, if any existing light pole fixture does not take 2,700, the intent was any existing light pole fixture does not take any 2,700 K, you're not required to change the bulb. However, if for some reason the fixture is deteriorated or damaged and needs replacing, the intent was to replace it with a fixture that would provide for 2,700 K.
I just, yeah, I get that that's probably the intent, but where it talks about retrofits not being required and then says however, that's confusing to me because it seems to refer to the preceding sentence about retrofits. Probably overanalyzing it, but.
No, I think that's how it reads to me as well. And I think, a way, if we were not looking at residential again, you could include that language there as well. The outdoor lighting code applies to all new non-residential construction. Retrofits to existing non-residential outdoor lighting fixtures are not required, and continue from there.
And do you just drop the word however and say light bulbs and existing outdoor lighting must be 27 or 3,000 degrees, whatever we land on? Is the word however what's throwing it off?
I think it's the light bulbs. It's that you don't have to do a retrofit of the fixture, but the light bulbs themselves have to be.
Just to go into the weeds a little farther, and I'll be corrected by those who can correct me. I think the confusion in my mind is coming from, there are fixtures that have lamps in them, right? Bulbs, lamps, and those can be screwed out or screwed back in or whatever it is and replaced. And generally speaking, you could change the color temperature on one of those without any real effect, right? Then there are LED-based fixtures, which are much more current, some of which are just baked in at a color temperature, and the whole thing is one thing, right? You can't take the LED out and replace it. You just take the whole fixture out and replace it, right? So I think what we needed to say is, in the case where we have a fixture with lamps that can be, the lamp burns out, the fixture is still usable, so you replace the lamp with a 3,000 Kelvin lamp, right? And that's just a matter of buying a different one when you go to buy the replacement. If a LED fixture burns out, then you replace that fixture with a 3,000 K fixture, but otherwise it stays as it is because you don't replace LEDs. Is that accurate?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. So in other words, like whatever breaks after the ordinance is impaneled, then you replace it with 3,000 K, right?
Clarify that
Yes.
language.
And I think one concern that I would say about that, just thinking of, since I have a number of those fixtures that are all the same, is if you replace one, now you suddenly have different light coloring in a room. It's going to look fairly awkward, and that becomes a very expensive proposition to have to replace all of them. Now, that's indoor. It may not be as noticeable outdoor, but just as a concern, which is, I think, one of the concerns of why residential wasn't included. All right, regardless, is there, and I appreciate the clarification, this is helpful, and thanks, Mr. O'Keefe, for the clarification. Is there a motion? It is. We'll try to record that.
Go ahead.
I just have one
Sure.
question.
Ms. Sharing, please.
With all the modifications that are needed to the text amendment as it is drafted,
Do we want to?
attempt to do it in a motion, or do we just move it to the next meeting and get the amended?
Ms. Kelly, what is the time frame? I know that we have this from the Sustainability Committee. Is there a desire from the city or from the committee to have this done this month, or is it something that we can talk about in May?
Yeah, we do.
It's
Advertised.
for a public hearing.
Yeah.
at the
So,
board.
yeah.
No, I was just going to say, it's advertised for a public hearing at the board, presumably next Monday.
Yes, on Monday. However, we can certainly,
It would not be read twice, and I don't know if you will meet before the following meeting of the Board of Aldermen.
no, May
but-
1st
Yeah.
would be the next one.
So I think there is the ask that we
Now-
try to make a decision on this.
We could tell the board you've not concluded, and they can open the hearing and
Close it again, yeah.
and continue it, if you're not comfortable with passing it forward.
The commission's, yeah, the commission's intent. Rather than. With, yeah, so basically make the approval with those recommendations to the board.
Yes.
Are we comfortable with that? Okay. All right. Mr. Carlin,
I make a motion to approve the ordinance as written with the following bullet point changes. We would change from 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin to be standard with Ameren. We would exempt residential properties from the requirement. I think that's it, right? And then otherwise, we would adopt the amendment.
yes.
And an additional bullet point would be that, you know, whatever breaks is what gets replaced, but if the fixture is still usable, you replace the lamp, not the fixture. Thank you. That was a motion.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do a roll call vote, but I want to pause shortly, and my apologies for breaking Robert's Rules of Order, but Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Kelly, are you comfortable that we've captured what we need to for this motion?
I believe so.
Thank you. All right, roll call vote if you would, please, Jessica.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. All right, I appreciate that. Moving on to new business. First item is P&Z 23002. This is a text amendment to section 400.1320C, section 400.1330C, to allow for adult daycare centers for the elderly and persons with disabilities that offer daytime programming for adults with development disabilities and respite for families who have a person with disabilities living at home, in conjunction with or without a group home, as a conditional use on lots of not less than 1/2 acre for A and B single-family residential districts. This is a petition, I assume, a text amendment coming from the city. So, Ms. Kelly, I'll turn it over to you for staff report, please.
Actually, this was a request by La Arch. They purchased, so I will let them go first because I know they have a presentation.
My apologies then. Text amendments have come from some different places. So the petitioner is here, and we look forward to speaking with you. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present.
And if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Paula Kilcoyne. Do you want the business address? 9445 Litzinger Road, Brentwood, Missouri, 63144.
Thank you. Appear there shortly. And I think we're in business. No signal.
Base unit.
Help is on the way.
have it on a thumb drive, I can do it via the shared. Are you close?
How about in the interest of time, if you wouldn't mind, when we start, and then if Ms. Kelly can get to work, and we'll catch up there, if that's
For
all right.
sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm Paula Kilcoyne, and I'm the Executive Director of L'Arche St. Louis. We have homes and programs for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We've been around the St. Louis area since 2011, and we have 3 homes, small neighborhood homes in Maplewood and Webster. And we have adults with intellectual disabilities and live-in caregivers. And then we also have some daytime activities that we run for people, and as well a family support program. So in the fall of 2021, we purchased the Family Forward building at 9445 Litzinger across from Tilly's Park. And that home had been run as a residential facility for children with special needs, high needs, who were in the adoption foster system. As you know, hundreds of children lived there over the years. It was a 24/7 residential, and I think on the top floor they had their offices. So we would like to use that building not for residential, but for daytime activities, small group of people that would come during the daytime. Our staff would bring them there and have therapeutic programs, life skills programs there, and also have our administrative offices in that large orange building right there on the corner. We also purchased on the property the home that's 9441. So that's a house that's in disrepair, and it's on multi-levels. Family Forward had used that also for extra housing for the children and some administrative work and storage, but it's in disrepair. We would like that to become the residence, because our homes, unlike in the children's system, in the adult system, we have neighborhood homes that are small and maximum of 4 individuals with disabilities, and then our staff that live there. So we want to build a beautiful home that would look like the other homes on Litzinger, would face Litzinger and be its own property, beautifully designed, and we would bring those drawings forward and everything. And that would become the residence with, we would do wheelchair accessibility and just, start over on that part of the property. And then in the other building, it would be some day activities and, again, our administrative offices. You get something?
Yep, we
Yeah,
did get the
if you wanna-
presentation
You guys are
going,
able to
so-
It's on the
see-
other screen.
Yep.
Okay, so I think you can, I don't know if you want to go through to like the pictures, Whitney, that
Yeah.
just, that's our first home in Maplewood, then our second home is, and then our third home is in Webster. So we're talking right now about that corner building is the large building that used to be residential, which we want to use for a small program. And then the other building I don't have a picture of, but we would like to tear that down and build something new there that would look like a story and a half. That was, let's see. Yep, that was our ribbon cutting. Mayor David came and the state rep and several of the alderpersons were there as well. So I just want to open it up for questions that the commission has, or
We'll go to staff report first, if you don't
Yep.
mind. So, thank you. Ms. Kelly.
Hold on just 1 second.
I do have one of my board members present if, while we're waiting for the staff report. This is, can I introduce Dr. Phil Ludbrook? He's been on our board for 9 years.
Welcome.
Thanks, Paula. Yeah, I'm Phil Ludbrook. I'm a member of the board and have been on the board for about 9 years, and I do that because I really, truly believe in my heart of hearts that this is the way to take care of adults with developmental disabilities in this day and age. The practice and ethos and the way we take care of people is a faith-based tradition. It's not specifically Christian, but it is faith-based. The board is a very solid, highly experienced professional board, which is perfectly able to take care of business matters efficiently. We have on board a lawyer who is the chairman. We have 2 MDs. We have a finance expert. In short, the board is prepared and able to take care of all business contingencies that could arise. But more particularly, I have been a physician for some 60 years, 50 years as a professor of medicine and radiology and psychiatry at WashU. My own specialty is in developmental cardiac disorders, that is, disorders of the heart that people are born with. Many of these people have coexistent intellectual disorders, and I have experienced the way that people with intellectual disorders have been taken care of over the last 60 years, all the way from my own aunt, who was institutionalized in a, quote, lunatic asylum in my day and age, behind 7-foot walls. Now the appropriate way to take care of people with developmental disorders is well realized to be in homes, real homes, where they live as families. They live together, they work together, they eat, they cook, they play, they squabble, they do everything that people in a home would do. But they also age. That brings us to the point that our people with developmental intellectual disorders are developing coexistent physical disabilities. And that is the main reason for establishing a home that would be equipped and able to take care of physical disabilities as well as developmental intellectual disabilities. And the home that Paula has mentioned in her proposal would be well equipped by American Disabilities Act regulations to take care of people in this particular setting.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
So I was not able to do a PowerPoint today, so I just have up there the staff report. In 1985, the Children's Home of St. Louis received a conditional use permit for the property at 9445 Litzinger as a group home for children under 6.5 years of age. Over time, that age was increased to 18, And the only reference to 9441 Litzinger Road was that they can use, parking could be available, could be included on that lot. In 2015, state legislation and the fair housing laws required a revision to the city's ordinances that allowed for group homes by right. However, there was a 500-foot separation between any two. Children's daycare services is allowed as for any property over a half acre in the AB and architectural AR district and multifamily district. Therefore, in order for, when they purchased the property, it was the understanding they were using the 9445 as a group home. However, the condition of the property they have indicated needs rehabilitation, and they wanted to use it more for day programming. However, it would be within and use the adjacent property for the group home. However, because 9445 is the group designated as the group home, that would be within 500 feet, and we don't have, current regulations don't allow for adult daycare facilities in the residential district. So that's why we're bringing this here tonight. The applicants have indicated they would combine the two properties into one, which would allow for them to get over that half acre. And staff recommended the half acreage so that it was consistent with what is allowed for the children's daycare services and provide enough parking on site or drop-off ability on site without creating a hazard on the road, typically. So that's why we're here tonight, is they need the text amendment in order to proceed with the conditional use permit and site development plan application for the adult daycare services and the group home all in one site. Typically, if it was just a group home, that would be permitted. We combined it with or without daycare so that both can be occurring on the same site. And that would still have the protection of the 500-foot separation in case someone else, another group home wanted to come in nearby. It would still allow the slight separation between any two group homes. And the applicants were hesitant about including any language for institutional use versus group home. So this is why we prepared the language as it's written. You can see here where they provide a rough schematic of what the group home would be at 9441 with the day programming at 9445. However, it's just rough, so they would have to have time to develop full plans for site development plan review at the Planning and Zoning Commission at the future time. So
Conditional use would still come back as well.
yeah. So, and we've only included it right now in the A and B districts. They are zoned B, right? And it's unlikely that any attached residential or multifamily residential would have an acreage allowance for over a half acre. But if we wanted to include it in all residential districts, we could look at that to be consistent with the children's daycare services, so.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the commission? And then we'll open it up to questions from members of the public. Ron?
So is this change to the draft language allows it on lots of less than half an acre? Is that?
No, it would be only in a half acre. Well, a group home is allowed on any residential lot. It's the adult daycare service with or without a group home that is a conditional use that would have to meet the half acreage requirement.
Okay.
So if another adult daycare service wanted to come in, they would have to have a half acre lot as well.
I think it says. It's a typo? Okay.
On lots of lot less, it should be of lot.
Yeah,
on
that
lots
should
of
be on not less than 1/2 acre, sorry.
Is all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Good eyes. I caught that and forgot that. Thank you. Other questions from members of the commission? Any members of the public wishing to address the petitioner, please. If you could come forward, please state your name and your address.
So
my name is Kara Kirker, and I live at 9418 Tillis Drive. So my house is directly behind the facility there today. And so one of my first questions is you keep saying children, so I'm confused because they're not going to be children. So I think
No.
that's,
So, I'm sorry, to clarify, currently allowed in the zoning code is children's daycare facilities on not less than a half acre. The previous owner of the property ran a children's group home.
Yes.
They are proposing an adult group home.
Correct. So
With an
it's very
adult
different.
daycare services.
Yeah,
Correct.
this is very different.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm here today, because this is very different for everybody. I mean, and you guys have a wonderful organization, and what you guys have done, the research I've done is wonderful. They are a faith-based organization. I know this for a fact because they actually use my church. I go to McKnight Crossings. However, I live in a residential area. And as you have mentioned, this is for residential purposes. This is the zoning of that. An adult daycare does not belong on McKnight and also like right in a residential area. The group home is fine. It's more of a residential thing, but I have major concerns about this for a variety of reasons, but the main reason is that this is a residential area. There's no need to have an adult daycare here. I wish them the best. I hope they find a place, but off of McKnight in a residential area is not the place for this. I hope you guys see that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Kirker. Any other members of the public wishing to address the commission? Alderwoman Tice.
Thank you for that. I'm Nancy Parker Tice, 2301 Parkridge Avenue, and I'd like to come and talk with my citizen hat on, so thank you for addressing me that way, but please ignore that. So I, as a citizen, would like to speak in support of this zoning change. I think that having the home there is it's such a needed thing in our community generally. And the other thing that's really needed in our community are places for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to go during the day. From what I read, it looked like it was for 15 people or under, so this isn't just massive. You know, if you had a regular daycare, there'd be a lot of traffic and a lot of people coming through. I'll speak personally. I have a sister-in-law who has since passed away who lived in a home in Creve Coeur. And she lived in her home from when she was 16 until she died there when she was 59 in hospice with her brother and sister by her side. And it was a wonderful model. And right near her, in her Creve Coeur neighborhood, was a place where she went for day activities in the middle of a neighborhood. She had a caregiver take her. She couldn't work at Schnucks. She couldn't have a job. This was a place where she could go and have a purpose and have things to do during the day. And I think this would be a great addition to Brentwood. I think it makes our community richer and more diverse, and I hope that you will approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tice. Maybe could help to understand, so just making sure that I'm recapping properly. So child care centers are allowed in residential with conditional use. Group homes are allowed under federal law. And so that would obviously, and so the difference here, of course, is we're looking at adult daycare. Could you help us understand what the services, kind of what is the daily activities it would be? Because traffic, obviously, is something that staff looked at, at drop-off, pickups and drop-offs. What would that look like with your plans?
So it would be our staff either wheeling people over from the house that we would build next door, and walking people over. So we wouldn't have vans coming in or buses or.
And the home, sorry to interrupt, the home is for 4 people, is that expected? Okay.
Correct.
Thank
That's the state
License,
cap.
yeah, yeah.
They cap it at 4 individuals with disabilities. And also we have our staff going to pick up someone from a family and bring him. So our staff are with the people in the transportation, and as well as they're the same staff that are in the program, which is very small. Might have 6 people coming for music therapy, or we have a kitchen that they're doing cooking skills. 10 people on a day that would be a lot. Most days would be smaller. with adults, it's nothing like children. So the density that the Family Forward used the building for was much, much higher. They had multiple large vans, minibuses parked there, multiple staff coming in, dozens of children at any given time, staying 24/7. So we would be way smaller and using that building. There wouldn't be parents coming, lining up and dropping off as you picture in a child daycare. It wouldn't be like that. It's our staff bringing people, so the same people that are bringing them and then coming to work with them, you know, it's not like a parking lot full of people just lining up and dropping off. Our people are always having someone with them. They're need assistance with walking. It's very slow and small, very different from a children's services. So I don't know if that helps paint a better picture, but
Who's the licensing agency that the state licensing agency for adult daycare, or is there one?
so, and we don't even call it adult daycare, but anyway, it's a day program, but
Day program, sorry.
the Department of Mental Health.
Okay. And is there a numeric limit on how many people you can have at one time, just as there is with childcare, daycare?
Yeah, but there is a limit. Yeah, I don't know what that, because some people are running them that are bigger than what we want to do. But yes, they would definitely come in and say, for this location, this is how many people we would cap it at, and yeah.
Thank you. Other questions from members of the commission? I'm sorry, Mr. Nuremberger. Thanks.
No,
Currently
the
two.
proposal is for a text amendment to allow for the adult daycare services on a lot of at least a half acre. And it could be with or without, in conjunction with a group home on the site. It wouldn't be a rezoning, it's still residential zoning. It's just allowing for the adult daycare services on a site of greater than a half acre. And then, yeah. They will have to come back for a conditional use permit and site consolidation at that time to combine the two lots and obtain the conditional use permit and site development plan for the adult daycare services at 9445 Litzinger, and then the group home at 9441. What is now 9441, but they would be combined to one single greater than half acre lot. Well, no, a group home is allowed by right in any residential district. However, it would have to be 500 feet from this existing one. One of the concerns that was expressed is if we just kept the two different, 9445 was under a half acre, and if we renamed it as something else to meet their needs, then that would allow for a group home to be within 500 feet, and some people preferred the 500-foot separation. So that's why we were trying to make the distinction that it would still provide it could be with or without a group home. But any group home can come into the city of Brentwood, provided they're more than 500 feet from any other group home. And that is a federal fair housing law.
Okay, so we were 4 blocks down, somebody else wanted to do a group home.
Well, the group home is not dependent on the lot size. It's only the adult daycare services that would be provided with or without the group home. It has to be on a half-acre site. And this is similar to child daycare services as well. Correct.
It's conditional use. This will be not a permitted use, but a conditional use of A and B residential zones.
Okay, and applies to all of them.
Yes, they would all have to appear for a conditional use permit.
Right.
Correct, thank
Any other questions? At this point, entertain a motion. Yeah, I don't believe there's a need to go to site plan for a text amendment, but. From Mr. Nurnberger. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fazza. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Ms. Sharing,
Yes.
Mr. Ritter,
Yes.
Mr. Foreman,
Yes.
Mr. Carlin,
Yes.
Mr. Nurnberg.
Yes.
All aye.
All right, and then this will go to the Board of Aldermen
On May 1st.
May 1st. So again, this is a recommendation for the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Board of Aldermen make the decision on text amendments. Thank you. Next is our other order item of new business, Planning and Zoning 23007. This is application for site development plan approval for 3,920 square foot building addition at 350 Hanley Industrial Court. I believe there is a request to continue this to the May meeting from the petitioner. Is that correct?
Correct.
All
They
right.
have requested to move it to the May 10th. Why, but that's what they requested.
And we are within the time frame of the petition. Do I have a motion to continue this petition to the May meeting?
Motion to continue?
Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll do a voice vote on this. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion to continue carries. Next up, aldermanic report. I do see, but I don't believe we have an aldermanic report, so we will move on to the director's report, which I believe has a very anticipated RFQ that we're going to be looking at.
Yes, so I wanted to share this with you in case y'all have any comments. You can email them to me, but we would like to go ahead and get this out. I did suggest as part of that it should be reviewed as part of the design guideline, build upon the design guidelines that was developed for the MC district, but create unique neighborhood designations for other major commercial corridors. But if there was anything else that y'all wanted me to think about or including or so once we get any of your comments, we'll try to post this as soon as possible so we can get that started. If there's anything if y'all think of later that we should have addressed, we will certainly, once we get the RFQs back, we will go through them, and once we made a selection, there's always time to add certain considerations that the board wishes to consider as part of our design guidelines, such as lighting that was discussed tonight, and we can go from there.
I'm a big fan of deadlines, even if they're internal deadlines, so let's make sure that we give us, I understand, as soon as possible is helpful. Ms. Kelly, is a week, or is 2 weeks, what is a reasonable timeline we can give ourselves to review this and return it for any comments? Or
I
do
would
we
like
want-
a week,
Okay.
just so I know we're all anxious to get this out there and get started. And we need to have it open and available for a few weeks to get any responses. And so I was hoping for a week if y'all didn't already have any comments that y'all can give me tonight.
And I will open it up for that, certainly, but if there are folks who have not had a chance to digest it and want to provide comments to staff, please do so by April 19th. But is there any member of the commission who has some thoughts already? We have some experts.
And I will say that they have seen it as part of the architectural review board.
Oh, they got a preview.
So.
I appreciated the fact that there was consideration of previous work that had been done. I also believe we're talking about the fact that it was comprehensive, covering residential and commercial, and so that is a good thing if we're going to do this. So I think that's helpful.
And that was one of the questions I had since I wasn't here at the time. I did find a draft residential design guidelines, but however, it was never adopted in 2008 at the same time that the comprehensive plan was done. I was wondering if y'all had any background, should we not reference it for any reason? Or if there was something that y'all might have been aware of?
Okay. And John, you're not aware of anything? All right.
Okay,
Doesn't sound like there's anything negative there, so.
okay.
you know. And I don't think you characterized it as it must be this. It was a consider these as you come up with recommendations.
Yes.
No questions at this point. Let's get input in by the 19th. We appreciate that. Thank you for the work on that.
And I will also point out that, as we pointed out with the Alloy Personal Fitness, they did not have enough parking on site. So I have contacted our traffic engineer, and before the Public Works Committee tomorrow night, have asked for a work order to maybe review all of our parking standards and see if there needs to be any revision so that we do not have to engage his services with as many new applications. It could be much more staff approval. Some of them I thought were running a little high, and he did indicate. So I think hopefully we will also look at doing text amendments to revise our parking standards. So. Yeah.
They want less parking.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping to better provide a better standard that meets with industry standards, so that we don't have a lot of surface unused parking. Yeah, so that we don't have a lot of underutilized parking lots or too much parking needed per the code, or we don't have to get into. There could be some other special considerations, so we don't have to engage the traffic engineer to do a parking study with every application. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other items of new business? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn?
Got a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.